Resident Evil 4, the critically acclaimed survival horror game from Capcom. Here are 30 useless facts that you probably don't need to know about this game. The village in Resident Evil 4 was actually based on a real-life Spanish village called Castellanos de Mariscos. The developers visited the village to get inspiration for the game's setting. The merchant character in Resident Evil 4 was actually supposed to be an enemy at first. However, the developers decided to turn him into a friendly character who sells weapons and items to the player. Ashley, the president's daughter in the game, was originally supposed to be a playable character. However, the developers decided to make her a damsel in distress instead. The regenerator enemy in Resident Evil 4 was inspired by a medical condition called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, which causes bones to grow in muscles and other soft tissues. The regenerator's sound effects were created by manipulating the sounds of a person breathing through a respirator. The Iron Maiden's name comes from the medieval torture device of the same name, which was a spiked coffin used to execute prisoners. The developers also drew inspiration from the movie Hellraiser. The Mercenaries mode in Resident Evil 4 was originally created as a bonus feature for the Japanese version of the game, but it was later added to the international versions due to its popularity. The game was originally planned to have a fixed camera angle like the previous Resident Evil games, but the developers decided to switch to a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective. The game was originally going to be called Resident Evil 3.5 before it was rebranded as a new game. Due to its popularity, the game was also ported to the Wii in 2007 and iOS devices in 2009. The game's plot was also originally supposed to feature zombies, but the developers decided to create a new enemy type called the Ganados. They were designed to be smarter and more agile than zombies. The Garrador's name is a combination of the Spanish words for guardian and blind. Dr. Salvador's appearance was based on the character Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film series. Dr. Salvador uses a modified version of the Husqvarna 272 XP chainsaw to kill Leon. In Resident Evil 4, the chainsaw has been modified with a longer bar and chain, as well as some additional modifications to make it a more effective weapon against humans. In the original Japanese version of Resident Evil 4, the decapitation instant death attack was not present. Instead, Dr. Salvador would simply cut Leon's shoulder. The decapitation animation was added to the game in the North American and European releases as a way to make the encounter with Dr. Salvador more intense and memorable. The Del Lago boss fight in Resident Evil 4 was originally supposed to take place on land, but the developers decided to change it to a water-based battle to make it more unique. In the Japanese version of Resident Evil 4, the Del Lago boss is called Mujer del Lago, which translates to Woman of the Lake. Del Lago was originally going to be a serpent-like creature that would emerge from the water to attack the player, but this was changed to a more traditional lake monster design. Originally, the El Gigante boss was supposed to be fought on a vertical tower, but this idea was scrapped in favor of a more open space. The El Gigante boss was originally going to have an attack where it would pick up and throw boulders, but this was cut from the final game. El Gigante's character design was inspired by various creatures such as trolls and ogres from mythology. The sounds El Gigante makes were created by mixing together the sounds of a lion, a pig, and a bear. The third boss in Resident Evil 4 is the enormous, multi-limbed monster known as the Bitors Mendez. The design for Bitors Mendez was influenced by the classic horror film, The Fly. The sixth boss in Resident Evil 4 is the Verdugo. The Verdugo was designed to be reminiscent of the xenomorphs from the Alien film series. The Verdugo was originally supposed to have a much larger role in the game, with multiple encounters and a backstory, but this was cut from the final game. Salazar's family crest, featuring the shield in the middle, is inspired by the crest of the Spanish city of Toledo. The Krauser boss was originally supposed to be a playable character in the game, but this was cut due to time constraints. The Krauser boss was originally going to be a character with a robotic arm, but this was changed to a character with a mutated arm to make it more in line with the game's themes. The scene where Salazar transforms into his monstrous form was originally going to be more horror, but it was toned down for the final game. Sadler is the first main villain in the Resident Evil series who is not affiliated with the Umbrella Corporation.